Don't panic. It wasn't that long ago that our leaders called us into an unplanned executive meeting. It was serious. Afoot was a vast, sad toll on human life, economic lockdown, and the start of many shutdowns, and a future that is anybody's guess. Assuming that most of us were in similar roles in the 2008 recession or other disasters or calamities similar in nature, those moments were bad, right? Perhaps the worst we had seen in our professional lifetime, or so we thought. Perhaps you've seen that video circulating of Marriott's CEO in which he shares how his company is navigating the situation that we all find ourselves in. He speaks of Marriott's worst time in history, which was the 2008 recession, where their global business was down 25%. COVID outbreak brought their global business down by 90%. It is serious and unavoidable. What does this mean for us? That was the subject of a meeting, the meeting that I'm sure all of you have been in as well. How can we survive? A knee-jerk reaction is securing sales, securing revenue, securing cash flow, which of course is all about business survival. Hi there, my name is Ryan Ducey. I'm the head of marketing at Nixplay. Nixplay makes smart photo frames, which allow families who are at distance from each other to stay closer. Our frames are connected via Wi-Fi to the Nixplay cloud, so you can share photos and video from your phone or Google Photos, for example, directly to the frame wherever it is in the world. To put our business in perspective, we're currently #1 in the USA, are in 500,000 homes, and have more than 1.5 million customers and process over 1 billion photos every day. Our largest market is the US, followed by the UK and Europe. Amazon accounts for more than 80% of our sales, but we also have our direct channel in the US, UK, and Germany. We've been working with Mezzo Labs for around 1.5 years now with a straightforward remit: make our landing pages and advertising smarter. But we have limited access to experienced analytic talent. It is for that reason we asked our analytics consultancy, Mezzo Labs, to help us build a personalization platform and turn our data into a competitive advantage. Adrian.
Hi, my name is Adrian Kingwell. I'm the founder and CEO of Mezzo Labs. And as Ryan says, Mezzo Labs is a digital analytics consultancy headquartered in London with Asia-Pac offices in Hong Kong and Singapore. We help global brands get commercial value out of their marketing analytics data using platforms like Tealium to create personalized customer experiences. We've been Tealium partners since 2014, and we've been working with Nixplay for 1.5 years to help them sell direct to their target audiences.
So we all recognize what the problem was, right? And for us, it was twofold. One was on the side of demand. How is this global situation going to impact the demand online for our customers? And secondly, on logistics. For example, when the lion's share of our business comes from Amazon, what will happen when Amazon decide to prioritize other products and the delivery of those products? Adrian?
So this has been a common problem for companies selling direct to consumers in the past few months. Consumers usually display fairly predictable behavior, so we've built marketing and operational systems around the demand that evolves relatively slowly and fluctuates relatively little. But these systems cope poorly when demand falls outside these narrow bands. A good example were the supermarkets back in March. They had empty shelves because of panic buying. In reality, panic buyers represented fewer than 5% of total buyers, but it was enough of a shock to a finely tuned system that just-in-time supply chains were completely run dry. Shelves were left empty. Although we talk about being responsive and changing our marketing at the speed of light, in reality, these changes are usually very small or known well in advance. For example, a 10% off promo code or a Black Monday sale that we've been planning all year. Nothing prepares us for a world that has been told to work from home until further notice, or shoppers who don't know if they're going to be furloughed or laid off.
Indeed, Adrian. And I think what is very clear is that we had to focus on business continuity. We certainly don't want to be presumptuous right now and tell you that we figured this out. We haven't. We still don't know what the future does hold. But one thing that we do know for sure is that we need to focus on continuity. It's really about cash flow in the short term, and where we can, capitalize on those things that we know work. capitalize on those things that we have direct control over.
It's worth mentioning that while it seems obvious for marketing teams to get behind the business continuity plan, I'm still surprised that many haven't. Not all companies have felt the effect of coronavirus, like those in retail or travel, but still. So to anyone worried about being furloughed or made redundant, find out what your company's business continuity plan is and align all your actions to it. If you are helping your company survive the recession, it is harder to fire you than it is to fire someone who is seen as an expensive luxury.
The question is, and you'll hear this a few times today, what is the minimum viable operation for the business? What is our priority for the next 3 months? Where do we find our customers and how do we earn their business? It really demands a ruthless focus on what is minimum viable operation.
It seems obvious, but establishing key objectives for the short term has been so critical for marketing teams who've been much more used to yearly plans. Starting with the questions and working back is a great way to establish what we should be doing in times of crisis. Back in 2002, during the last Iraq War, Donald Rumsfeld famously confused the world's press with his statement, "There are known knowns, there are known unknowns, and there are unknown unknowns." But there is a lot of sense in what he said. We should identify what we know to be true, what we need to find out, and then acknowledge that there's a lot of other stuff that we just don't know the answers to. This helps focus the team conversation on what we can do rather than worrying about what we can't.
Of course, the plan that we all talk about, again, that phrase of focusing on the minimum viable operation, is really about reducing cost and figuring out how we can get more sales in channels that we have direct control over. What is fundamental in all of this is that we realize that there is no time to change our existing tech stack. What helped in our situation is that we had been working with Mezzo and Telium for more than 12 months now, and we're able to get some test data, quite a lot of test data under our belt to prove a business case that this is part of a minimum viable operation, really critical to the success of a continuity plan.
So as Ryan said, over the past year and a half, we've been working closely with Nixplay, taking them through our performance accelerator methodology and implementing the full Telium stack. So we knew their setup pretty well. There had to be a way where we could use near real-time visitor data to discover new customer behavior and then find segments of similar user types via targeted advertising and bring them to the website. By closely analyzing the behaviors of yesterday's website visitors, maybe we could help the visitors of today to convert and then go to Facebook and Google networks to find similar consumers and bring them to the site too. At our disposal, we had Google Analytics data, Google and Facebook media tag data, and access to VWO to personalize the on-site customer experience. If volumes were sufficiently high, we might be able to A/B test our experiences. We could run tests in real time and watch to see what effect each one had on each audience segment. So let's look at the wider picture for a moment. We've been working with a number of companies across many different sectors, and Nixplay's experience was not unique. As the COVID cliche goes, we're all in this together. And sure enough, everyone is suffering similar challenges in varying degrees. Some common patterns were emerging. We noticed that there were some common behaviors in the coronavirus economy. Businesses were behaving in certain similar ways in order to survive in the twilight world of lockdown, and then hopefully to set themselves up to win in the new normal. Those that hadn't figured out the new behaviors either had a business that was resilient, like pharmaceutical companies or video conferencing companies, or they simply would not survive. Companies in travel, leisure, high street retail, or renting temporary office space to businesses who no longer needed a physical location, well, the future was not so bright. They had little choice but to slash as much cost as possible and wait for the storm to pass. So out of what we saw at Nixplay and beyond, we established what we called the 4 pillars of the new normal. In many respects, these pillars apply to every company affected by a global crisis. And seeing as coronavirus is unlikely to be the last black swan event in our lifetime, these pillars might come in handy in the future too. Remember where you heard it first. So the first pillar. The first pillar is to acknowledge as soon as possible that the world has changed. As Dorothy says to her dog in The Wizard of Oz, we're not in Kansas anymore. Her new world is not black and white, but full of bright colors and witches and little blue people hidden in the flowers. But Dorothy is cool. She does not panic, and she acknowledges very quickly that everything she knew in Kansas does not apply here. Generally, human beings take far too long to acknowledge a crisis. We don't press the fire alarm button because we're not absolutely sure if the fire is a serious one or not. Western governments lost months watching coronavirus hit Wuhan when they could have been preparing for when it hit them. We see this in the corporate world too. No one wants to be the person who says we're not in Kansas anymore. No one wants to slam on the brakes. But at some point, someone has to tell the team, the world has changed. Then all focus is on the business continuity plan, sometimes better called the survival plan. And then later, it will be on the recovery plan. The marketing plan is no longer needed. Anything tied to achieving the marketing plan needs to be cut as quickly as possible. Any supplier that can prove they're part of the survival plan might be able to help. The rest have to wait until you return to business as usual. The quicker you can establish short-term priorities, the better. As you could see in Nixplay, they wasted little time cutting all non-essential costs and building a new plan for digital. The most important thing to realize here is that human behavior is geared against acknowledging that things have changed. Most people don't like change. Most spend their lives in fear of change. So while it is easy to say, build a survival plan, it is much harder to get your digital team behind it. So the new plan for digital needs to be simple, super clear, and everyone needs to understand their role in it. Okay, the first pillar acknowledges that the world has changed. The second pillar acknowledges that all data collected before the crisis is, well, almost completely useless at helping us survive in the twilight world. History won't repeat itself. What happened back then isn't happening now. So we can ignore traditional purchasing behavior to some extent because people in the twilight world of lockdown and recovery, they don't purchase in a traditional way. Some people panic buy. Some find new ways to buy. Some hold on to their cash and don't buy at all. I recently spoke to a company called Fragrance Direct, who sell perfumes and colognes online. Their business is booming right now. Why? Well, people in lockdown don't go to pharmacies. They don't go to department stores or duty-free shops to buy Chanel No. 5. So they go online. It's a non-essential purchase, but somehow it is a small personal reward for being a good citizen and for once listening to what the government has told you to do. So let's look at the data we're gathering now. Surely that should show us the truth. Maybe, well, maybe not. The caveat is to beware of false positives. If we were a supermarket and we looked at our sales data in March, we'd have assumed that toilet paper was the new must-have item, and you'd have trebled your orders on your toilet paper suppliers. Well, wrong. The temporary uptick was little more than behavioral economics in action. People see something is running out, they don't buy less, they buy more, whether they need it or not. The goal for you is to find the new audiences. Some of these people may be the same people who visited your website 3 months ago, but their purchasing now is very different. And now they belong to a brand new segment. They are the husband who previously bought perfume for his wife and is now treating himself to some Calvin Klein obsession. So we think we found a new audience segment and are aware of false positives. What next? What do we do with it? Well, the answer is to test, test, test. As every scientist knows, the only way to prove a hypothesis is to test it empirically. A/B test it and let the data discover the truth. Pillar number 3. Well, the previous 2 pillars were quite straightforward, but the third one isn't. New audiences coming through new channels with new priorities need new messages. Hopefully your products will still be relevant in the new normal, but they may need some careful repositioning. You may find that your traditional USPs no longer apply. You may find that in the new normal, your product is more essential than it was before. for a use case that didn't exist before. Facebook had Portal, an over-engineered, overpriced webcam for an audience who feared technology. It didn't sell particularly well until recently, when coronavirus made it a social lifeline for elderly parents in lockdown who couldn't see their children or grandchildren. The product quickly sold out as people of all generations got used to group video conferences. A new use case Facebook would never have thought of. So your mission is this: find your new why. The new reason why your customers should buy your product, the problem or desire that they are trying to solve, and then adapt your messaging to make your product the perfect solution for that. But creating new product messages is hard work, and it can be incredibly disruptive as all sorts of communications channels need to be rethought. So we better be sure that the new messages work. Digital can help to some extent with the quant data, but there is still a need for traditional qualitative research. Building in some form of customer feedback tool like Medallia or Qualtrics is invaluable in this. It is now more common for UX analytics tools like Quantum Metric or Content Square, or customer service platforms like Zendesk or Freshdesk to have survey tools built in. Okay, they're not thoroughbred survey tools, but it may be that your existing tool set can do a reasonable job. If you were really on a budget, I'm sure you'd find a way to hack something with SurveyMonkey. These tools are all good for collecting feedback, but nothing replaces the kind of real-life feedback on your messages that traditional market research agencies provide. Unfortunately, that takes time and money, neither of which you have. But there are platforms like SurveyGizmo and Voxco that can help bridge that gap. But don't underestimate the amount of effort involved in getting the outputs you need. So the fourth and final pillar is economy is the mother of invention. Usually we say that necessity is the mother of invention, but in our world, a lack of budget often produces some amazing creative leaps forward. For example, the Wright brothers achieved first manned flight, but they didn't have deep pockets. They built the flyer out of wood and muslin and funded it from their bicycle business. The inventor, John Logie Baird, produced the world's first working television set from an old hat box, a few bicycle lamp lenses, and a used tea chest. We have to look at the tech we have and make it work in different ways. It is amazing how much analytics tech is used in exactly the way it was intended. There is no equivalent of bicycle parts and old hat boxes in the world of corporate analytics, but there should be. With the cloud, we have never had so much technical capacity at our disposal, but invention seems to be dominated by startups who have borrowed $50,000 from friends, fools, and family, and not risk-averse corporate marketing teams. The task is not hard to define. Use your tech and your genius to find sales in a market where no one has figured out what the hell is happening. Talk to Telium about using their data connectors and figure out new ways to use their data. I'm sure they would love to help you. And if they don't, call me, because Mezzo Labs will. You will never have a better chance to experiment. Traditional revenue forecasts are shot to pieces, and anything you win will be seen as a victory. You have 6 months to do it. The window of opportunity is fast closing, and it will be shut by Christmas. So this is how we use the 4 pillars at Nixplay, helping them pivot as quickly as possible towards a survival plan. Having realized we weren't in Kansas anymore, we needed to quickly understand what success in the next 1 to 3 months looked like. The business needed to generate cash quickly through sales revenue, and we needed to drive as much as possible of this revenue directly. The obvious solution was through Nixplay's own e-commerce platform, Nixplay.com. Now that we knew the objective, we needed to quickly find audiences who were still buying Wi-Fi enabled photo frames. We also needed to identify enough of them to make a material difference. We threw our insights team at Google Analytics. We could trust the data in GA. We understood it well, and it would give us the latest version of behaviors on the Nixplay website. We could have included historic data from CRM or Shopify, But as history won't repeat itself, that would not have given us a full understanding of new behaviors. It would also have slowed us down in pulling this data, cleaning it, integrating it, modeling it. So we stuck with GA and identified 4 key audience groups. These were the browsers, the undecideds, the customers, and the lookalikes. Next, we designed the journeys to drive the behaviors we were hoping for. Conversion was most important, as well as moving people up through the audience types as quickly as possible. We tailored specific content for each audience, such as showing the undecided audience a mini bag. This was a sticky shopping cart shown as a customer returned to the website. We mapped these experiences to the media channels, from Facebook display ads to the Nixplay website. Creating the audiences and experiences was great on paper, but we needed to activate them. We had no time to implement new tools or technology, but luckily, we had been on a journey with Nixplay for the last year, delivering an architecture which would get them to their data-driven future. Part of this architecture was Tealium IQ and Tealium Audience Stream. These 2 platforms were key for us to activate the audiences at speed. It allowed us to build the audiences we'd identified previously using attributes which were captured in Audience Stream through IQ. More than that, we could push these audiences to any front-end application we needed to run both paid media and on-site testing activity. We could build these integrated experiences quickly, and we could launch them to get incremental benefit as fast as possible. Brian, anything to add here?
Thanks, Adrian. What I love about the work that we did together was really being able to express it simply. You'll see on the slides to follow of some golden nugget numbers that can be explained in 10 seconds or less at the C level. All the data is there to support it, but you can explain what you're doing very quickly.
So expanding on the architecture a little, you can see how the various pieces fitted together to enable us to move quickly. You can also see that we did not use everything available to us. We didn't need to, and it would be actually counterproductive. On the left-hand side, you can see we primarily utilized Google Analytics to give us a clear understanding of current digital behaviors. We had previously re-implemented GA, so had rich, accurate data to work with. With this data, understanding where people go and what they do, in parallel, segmented these users into different groups, primarily focused on behaviors. This gave us the who. This data was already being ingested into Tealium Audience Stream alongside other data we'd previously connected into the platform. So we could focus on selecting the attributes and badges to build these audiences. We could also identify the triggers we'd use to either move people between audiences or tell a third-party platform to do something. Our experiences were built into each of the customer-facing platforms: Google Ads, Facebook Ads, and VWO. It was configured to provide a consistent and seamless experience regardless of journey. And now the results. Well, it's still early days, but from this one activity, we saw strong initial returns. We looked at performance in 2 ways: audiences and experiences. Were our audiences unique, relevant, and impactful? And were our experiences better than the control in causing those audiences to do what we wanted them to do? Both were a resounding yes. The audiences we'd identified on average converted 2 to 20 times higher. If you think about that, it's an incredibly relevant finding for this near normal period. Why would you focus on the rest of the traffic when they have almost 0 chance of converting? This outcome means we've identified a relevant, valuable, and targetable set of audiences, which Nixplay can focus on for the next few months. Secondly, we created experiences which resonated much more strongly with these audiences. We saw a 13.5% uplift in conversion for users who saw a personalized experience. This is a massive difference within an audience group and showed that providing something relevant and targeted has a significant impact on behavior. It also means that we can be confident in rolling this experience out as BAU to get ongoing value, whilst moving on to the next set of tests. Just to reiterate, this is only one set of test experiences to an initial set of audiences using only digital data. It was kept intentionally simple, fast, and nimble. The outcome was a good validation point that our approach can have a positive impact during this exceptionally difficult period. Ryan?
Yeah, one of the best things that I learned from Mezzo, and it seems obvious now, is that the true value of testing is not actually from the testing. It's when you implement the successful tests as part of business as usual. Good learning there.
So, in summary, while we live in unprecedented times in constant fear of economic disaster, there's never been a better time to discover, test, and be creative with our data and technology. While companies that fail to change fast enough will not survive, those that adapt and quickly find new audiences will soon become the winners in the new normal. If we survive the next few months, we will find that the new normal is an exciting world with a lot of new opportunities coming from changes in travel, communication, social behavior, and work practice. It's up to us as marketers to discover those opportunities before someone else does.
Indeed, Adrian. The competition to be on that list of minimum viable operation is fierce. What gets you on that list is certainly a proven business case that's been driven by testing. Thank you.
Thank you.